She completely ignored him after a perfect night. Now he's her new boss and remembers everything. Before we explore all the details of this incredible story, tell us where you're following us from and the time. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing, and let's embark on this journey together. She shouldn't have stayed past midnight, but she did. The rooftop bar in downtown Chicago hummed with Friday night energy, city lights painting everything in gold and amber. Leah Sanders adjusted the strap of her black dress, the one she'd borrowed from her friend Kira, because her own clothes were too conservative for a night out. She'd been in the city for exactly 6 hours, and already she felt like a different person. "You're overthinking again," Kira laughed, sliding another mojito across the small table. "It's written all over your face." Leah tucked a strand of her natural curls behind her ear, her warm brown skin catching the soft light. At 29, she'd mastered the art of calculated decisions, planned outcomes and safe choices. Tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight was supposed to be about letting go. "I don't overthink," Leah protested, though her fingers drummed against the glass in a familiar nervous rhythm. "Really? Because you've been staring at that same guy for 10 minutes. Leah's eyes darted across the bar, landing on him again. Tall, broad shoulders filling out a navy jacket, dark hair slightly tousled by the evening breeze. He was leaning against the railing, alone, watching the skyline with an expression that seemed both content and searching. "I'm not staring," she murmured, but even as she said it, he turned. Their eyes met. The world didn't stop. That only happened in movies. Instead, everything sharpened. The music became clearer. The air felt thicker, and something electric shot through her chest. He smiled. Not the practiced smile of someone trying to impress, but something genuine and slightly surprised, as if he hadn't expected to find anything interesting tonight either. "Oh my God," Kira whispered. "He's coming over." Panic fluttered in Leah's stomach, but she forced herself to stay still. She'd promised herself one night of not running away from possibilities. "Excuse me." His voice was deeper than she'd expected, with a slight rasp that made her skin warm. "I don't usually do this, but I couldn't help noticing you seemed as fascinated by the view as I was." Leah looked up at him, really looked. His eyes were the kind of blue that reminded her of winter mornings, sharp and clear. There was something about the way he held himself, confident but not arrogant, that made her want to know more. "The view is impressive," she managed, surprised by how steady her own voice sounded. "Adrian," he said, extending his hand. "Leah." The moment their skin touched, she felt it, that spark people talked about but she'd never experienced. Real, undeniable, dangerous. "Would you like to get some air? Somewhere quieter?" Adrian asked, his thumb grazing her knuckles before he released her hand. Kira kicked her under the table. A not-so-subtle encouragement. "I'd like that," Leah heard herself say. They found themselves on a smaller terrace, away from the crowd. The conversation flowed like they'd known each other for years. He was an architect, she learned, recently moved to Chicago for a project. She told him she was a marketing coordinator. True, but she left out the part about the job interview on Monday that could change everything. "You know what's funny?" Adrian said, after they'd been talking for nearly 2 hours. "I feel like I should know you, like we've met before." Leah's heart did something complicated in her chest. "Maybe in another life." "Maybe," he agreed, but his eyes said he wanted this life, this moment, this version of her that was bold enough to stay on a rooftop with a beautiful stranger. The air between them shifted, charged. He was standing closer now, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something clean and masculine that made her want to lean in. "Leah," he said her name like it meant something. "Yes, I'm going to kiss you now." "If that's not what you want?" She silenced him by rising up on her toes, closing the distance between them. The kiss was soft at first, questioning, then deeper as she responded. Her hands found the lapels of his jacket, holding on as if the ground might disappear beneath her feet. When they broke apart, both breathless, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "Come back to my hotel with me," he whispered, the words more request than demand. Every logical part of Leah's brain screamed warnings. She didn't do this. She didn't follow strangers to hotel rooms or make decisions based on the way someone kissed her or how their laugh made her feel like she was floating. But tonight, logic felt like a cage she'd been living in too long. "Yes," she breathed. The taxi ride to his hotel was a blur of stolen touches and whispered conversations. His fingers intertwined with hers, thumb tracing circles on her palm that sent heat racing up her arm. They talked about everything and nothing, favorite movies, worst first dates, the way the city looked from high places. His hotel room was elegant, but impersonal, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. But Leah barely noticed the view. The moment the door closed, Adrian's hands were in her hair and she was lost. They moved together like they'd been choreographing this dance for months. Every touch felt both brand new and achingly familiar. He whispered her name against her neck, and she felt herself falling, not just into his bed, but into something deeper and more dangerous than she'd ever allowed herself to feel. Hours later, as dawn painted the sky in soft pastels, Leah lay in Adrian's arms, listening to his heartbeat. His fingers traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. The question hit her like cold water. Reality crashed back. Her job interview, her carefully planned life, the fact that she lived 4 hours away and this perfect night was never supposed to be more than a beautiful memory. "I don't know," she whispered, and for the first time in her life, not knowing felt terrifying instead of exciting. Adrian's arms tightened around her. "I want to see you again, Leah. This isn't just... This means something." Her chest ached with want and fear in equal measure. She wanted to say yes, to give him her number, to see where this impossible connection could lead. Instead, she did what she always did when things became too real, too risky, too much. While Adrian slept, peaceful and beautiful in the morning light, Leah carefully extracted herself from his arms. She dressed quietly, her hands shaking as she gathered her belongings. On the hotel notepad, she wrote only, "Thank you for the most perfect night of my life." She left the note on the pillow where her head had been, and slipped out of the room like a thief stealing away with pieces of her own heart. In the elevator, tears she hadn't expected burned her eyes, but she didn't go back. 3 months later, standing outside the glass doors of Hartwell & Associates, Leah smoothed her blazer and reminded herself why she'd made that choice. Some beautiful things were meant to stay beautiful by staying brief. She checked her reflection one last time, took a deep breath and walked inside to meet her new boss, completely unaware that her carefully compartmentalized world was about to collide with the one night she'd promised herself to forget. And in that conference room, her past was waiting with a smile that remembered everything. The last person she expected to see was the one person she couldn't forget. Leah's heels clicked against the polished marble floor of Hartwell & Associates as she made her way to the elevator. 3 months of preparation had led to this moment, her first day as senior marketing coordinator at one of Chicago's most prestigious consulting firms. She'd rehearsed her introduction, memorized key client names, and chosen her outfit with military precision. A tailored charcoal blazer, cream blouse, and her lucky pearl earrings. Everything was under control. Everything was planned. "Leah Sanders?" The receptionist, a friendly woman named Beth with silver-streaked hair, smiled warmly. "Mr. Cole is ready to see you in conference room A, just down the hall, last door on the right." "Thank you." Leah's voice was steady, professional. She'd Googled Adrian Cole extensively. Harvard MBA, 10 years with McKinsey, recently hired to head the firm's expansion into sustainable development. The headshot on the company website showed a man in his 30s with dark hair and serious eyes. Successful, intimidating, exactly the kind of boss she needed to impress. She walked down the hallway, passing glass offices where people in expensive suits discussed quarterly projections and market analyses. This was her world now. Structured, professional, safe. Leah paused outside conference room A, straightening her blazer one final time. Through the frosted glass, she could see a tall figure standing with his back to the door, looking out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the Chicago skyline. She knocked twice and entered without waiting for a response. "Mr. Cole, I'm Leah Sanders. Your new..." The man turned around. Time stopped. The blood drained from her face so quickly she felt dizzy. Her carefully prepared introduction died in her throat as every molecule of oxygen seemed to vanish from the room. It was him, Adrian. The man from the rooftop bar, the man whose arms she'd woken up in, the man she'd left sleeping in a hotel room with nothing but a note and a broken promise. He stood there in an impeccably tailored navy suit, white shirt open at the collar, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine. But his eyes, those winter blue eyes that had haunted her dreams for 3 months, widened with the same shock that was currently short-circuiting her brain. For a moment that felt like eternity. Neither of them spoke. The air between them crackled with the weight of shared memory, unfinished business, and the kind of tension that made breathing an active effort. Then Adrian's mouth curved into that smile, the one that had made her forget every rule she'd ever made for herself. "Well," he said, his voice carrying that same warm rasp that used to whisper her name in the dark. "This is unexpected." Leah opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No sound came out. Adrian took a step closer and she caught a hint of his cologne, the same one that had lingered on her skin for days after Chicago. "Leah Sanders," he said, as if testing the weight of her real name. "I have to admit, I prefer it to just L." Heat flooded her cheeks. He'd kept the note. Of course he'd kept the note. She started, then stopped, her brain scrambling to shift gears from personal to professional. "Mr. Cole, I had no idea that I was your new boss." He leaned back against the conference table, crossing his arms in a way that made his biceps strain against his jacket sleeves. "Trust me, the surprise is mutual, though I have to say it explains a lot." "Explains what?" "Why you disappeared." His eyes never left hers, and she felt stripped bare under his gaze. "You knew about the job, didn't you? That night in Chicago?" Leah's heart hammered against her ribs. "I was there for an interview, yes, but I didn't know, I never imagined that the universe has a sense of humor." Adrian pushed off from the table and moved closer. Not close enough to be inappropriate, but close enough that she could see the flecks of silver in his blue eyes, close enough to remember exactly how those eyes had looked when he'd whispered her name like a prayer. "Mr. Cole," she said, forcing steel into her voice, "I think we should keep this professional." "Professional?" He repeated the word like it was foreign. "Is that what you call leaving someone's bed at dawn without so much as a goodbye?" The words hit like a slap. Leah straightened her shoulders, calling on every ounce of dignity she possessed. "That night was a mistake, a lapse in judgment. It has nothing to do with my work here." "A mistake?" Something dangerous flickered in Adrian's expression. "That's what you're calling it?" "Yes." "Interesting." He circled around her slowly, like a predator studying prey. "Because I remember someone who couldn't stop saying my name, someone who fit against me like she was made for my arms, someone who looked at me like I was her entire world." Leah's breath hitched. The memories he was painting made her skin burn and her resolve waver. "That person doesn't exist anymore, doesn't she?" He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "Because she looks exactly like the woman standing in my conference room right now. Same beautiful brown eyes, same way of biting her lower lip when she's nervous." Unconsciously, Leah released her lip from between her teeth. Adrian's smile was pure sin. "Same tells." "Stop." The word came out breathier than she intended. "This can't happen. I need this job, Mr. Cole. I need—" "Adrian." "What?" "My name. You know it. You've said it. You've breathed it against my neck while I—" "Mr. Cole." She stepped back, hitting the wall behind her. "Please." He followed, placing one hand on the wall beside her head, not trapping her, but close enough that she was surrounded by his presence. "Leah," he said softly, and her name on his lips undid something fundamental inside her chest. "I looked for you." The admission hit her like a physical blow. "Don't." "For 3 months, I looked for you. I went back to that bar every Friday, hoping you'd walk in. I even hired a private investigator to help me find L. Sanders, but there were too many possibilities. Adrian, please. You want to know why I took this job? Why I left everything in Boston to come here?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "Because when they sent me the employee directory, I saw your name. L. Sanders, marketing coordinator. I thought it couldn't be you, but I had to find out. The room spun. You took this job because you thought, because you hoped, that I'd find you." "Yes." His free hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing the line of her cheekbone. "So forgive me if I'm not ready to pretend that what happened between us was just a mistake." Leah closed her eyes, leaning into his touch for just a moment before reality crashed back. "This is insane. You're my boss. There are rules." "Rules," he said, leaning closer until his forehead almost touched hers, "didn't stop you from coming to my hotel room. Rules didn't stop you from looking at me like you were seeing the missing piece of your soul. That wasn't real. Don't lie to me, Leah, and don't lie to yourself." His thumb moved to trace her bottom lip, and she shivered. "Tell me you felt nothing that night, and I'll walk away. Tell me it was just sex, just a random hookup, and I'll never mention it again." She opened her eyes, meeting his intense stare. The lie was right there, waiting to be spoken. The safe, professional lie that would put walls back up and let her pretend her world hadn't just been turned upside down. But looking into those blue eyes, eyes that had watched her come apart in his arms, that had looked at her like she was precious beyond measure, she couldn't do it. "I can't," she whispered. "Can't what?" "Lie to you. I've never been able to lie to you. The smile that spread across Adrian's face was devastating. I know. Before she could think, before she could remember all the reasons this was impossible, he kissed her. Soft at first, then deeper as her body betrayed every logical thought and melted against his. She tasted 3 months of longing, of nights spent dreaming about this exact moment, of want so profound it had changed the very fabric of who she was. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "I'm not sorry," he said. "I'm not sorry I found you. I'm not sorry I kissed you, and I'm not sorry that I'm about to turn your carefully ordered world upside down." Leah's heart pounded so hard she was sure he could hear it. "Adrian, we can't..." "Can't what?" "Feel something real for the first time in our lives." And in that moment she realized that running away had only delayed the inevitable. Some lines, once crossed, can never be uncrossed. Leah stared at her reflection in the women's restroom mirror, trying to calm the storm raging inside her chest. Her lipstick was smudged, evidence of the kiss that had just turned her carefully constructed world into beautiful chaos. She dabbed at the corner of her mouth with a paper towel, but couldn't erase the tingling sensation that lingered there. "He looked for me for 3 months. The thought sent another wave of heat through her body. Adrian Cole, successful, gorgeous, completely out of her league Adrian Cole, had turned his entire life upside down, hoping to find her again. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Conference room A. 5 minutes. We need to talk." Aaliyah's hands trembled as she typed back, "This is a mistake." The response came immediately. "So was letting you walk away the first time. Not making that mistake again." She closed her eyes, leaning against the cool tile wall. 3 months ago, she'd convinced herself that leaving was the right choice, the safe choice. Adrian was the kind of man who could make a woman forget about career goals, financial security, and 5-year plans. The kind of man who made forever seem possible with just one smile. That was exactly why she'd run. But now, standing in the bathroom of the company where they both worked, Leah realized that running hadn't protected her heart. It had just postponed the inevitable. When she returned to conference room A, Adrian was standing exactly where she'd left him, though he'd straightened his tie and run his hands through his hair. Even disheveled, he looked like he belonged on magazine covers. "Shut the door," he said quietly. "Adrian, please." She hesitated, then closed the door and turned to face him. The space between them felt charged, dangerous, like standing too close to a lightning storm. "We need ground rules," she said, proud of how steady her voice sounded. "Do we?" Adrian moved to the conference table, leaning against it with his arms crossed. "Because I'm not sure either of us is very good at following rules when it comes to each other." Heat crept up her neck. That kiss was inevitable, inappropriate, honest. His blue eyes held hers captive. "The most honest thing that's happened to me in 3 months. Leah wrapped her arms around herself, a protective gesture that didn't go unnoticed. "I can't afford to lose this job, Adrian. I have student loans, rent, responsibilities. You think I'd fire you?" The hurt in his voice made her stomach twist. "I think workplace relationships are complicated and messy and you're terrified." He pushed off from the table, taking a step closer. "Not of losing your job. You're terrified of this." He gestured between them. "Of what happens when you stop running." The accusation hit too close to home. "I'm not terrified, I'm practical." "Practical?" Adrian's smile was sharp around the edges. "Is that what you call leaving the best thing that ever happened to you sleeping in a hotel room?" "The best thing?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Adrian, we knew each other for 1 night. 1 night doesn't what? Make you real?" "Because you felt pretty real to me, Leah. The way you looked at me, the way you said my name, the way you fit against me like you were made for my arms, that was real." Memory flooded through her, the weight of his hand in her hair, the sound of his laugh against her skin, the way he'd whispered her name like it was sacred. Her resolve wavered. "It was 1 night," she repeated, but the words lacked conviction. "Then let's have another." The simple statement hung in the air between them like a challenge. "Adrian," she started, but he held up a hand. "Dinner tonight. Just dinner." His voice gentled. "Let me take you somewhere we can talk without glass walls and corporate policies breathing down our necks. Don't think. For once in your life, Leah, just feel." He took another step closer, and she could smell his cologne again, that clean, masculine scent that made her want to close her eyes and lean into him. "What do you want? Not what's practical, not what's safe. What do you want?" The question hit her like a physical blow. When was the last time someone had asked her what she wanted? When was the last time she'd even asked herself? "I want," she began, then stopped, the words too dangerous to speak aloud. "Yes, I want to not want you," she whispered. "I want to be able to look at you and see just my boss. I want to stop dreaming about that night. I want to stop wondering what would have happened if I'd stayed." Adrian's expression softened. "And what do you dream about?" Heat flooded her cheeks. "That's not, we shouldn't, tell me." His voice was gentle but insistent. "Tell me what you dream about, and I'll tell you what I've been dreaming about for 3 months. She looked into his eyes and saw her own longing reflected back at her. The carefully constructed wall she'd built around her heart began to crumble. "I dream about your hands," she admitted quietly. "The way you touched my face, like I was something precious. I dream about your laugh and how it made me feel like I could fly. I dream about waking up next to you and how right it felt, even though I knew it couldn't last." Adrian's breath caught. "Leah, I dream about staying," she finished, the confession tearing something open inside her chest. "I dream about being brave enough to stay." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Adrian crossed the space between them in 2 quick strides, cupping her face in his hands. "Then be brave now," he said, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones. "Have dinner with me. Give us a chance to figure out what this is." Leah closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. Every logical part of her brain screamed warnings about workplace harassment policies and professional boundaries, but her heart, her treacherous, hopeful heart, whispered something different. What if he's worth the risk? "Okay," she breathed. "Okay? Dinner. Just dinner." She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. "But we need rules." Adrian's smile was pure sunshine. "Name them. No talking about that night. Done. No. Touching. Not here. Not at work." His thumb traced her bottom lip before he dropped his hands. "That's going to be harder than you think." "And no falling in love with me," she added, trying for lightness but hearing the tremor in her own voice. Adrian's expression grew serious. "Leah, promise me. This is just dinner, just figuring things out, not falling in love." He was quiet for so long that she began to panic. Then he leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, gentle, reverent, and utterly devastating. "I can't promise that," he murmured against her skin, "because I think I might already be halfway there." Before she could respond, before she could process the implications of what he'd just said, someone knocked on the conference room door. They sprang apart, just as Beth's voice called through the glass. "Mr. Cole, your 2 o'clock is here." "Of course they are," Adrian muttered, running a hand through his hair. He looked at Leah, his expression intense. 7 o'clock, the signature room. Don't run away this time. Adrian, promise me." She looked into those winter blue eyes and felt herself falling all over again. "I promise." As she gathered her things and headed for the door, Adrian's voice stopped her. "Leah?" "Yes?" "For what it's worth, I think you're worth the risk too." And in that moment, she realized that some promises were meant to be broken, while others were meant to change everything. Some conversations can only happen when you're floating above the rest of the world. Leah stood before her bedroom mirror, holding up her 3rd dress of the evening. The black cocktail dress felt too formal, the blue wrap dress too casual, and the burgundy number made her look like she was trying too hard. She'd changed her mind so many times that her bed looked like a clothing store explosion. "It's just dinner," she told herself for the 100th time. Just 2 adults having a conversation. But her racing heart knew better. This wasn't just dinner. This was the moment everything changed one way or another. Her phone buzzed, running 5 minutes late. "Don't disappear on me." Despite her nerves, Leah smiled. She typed back, "I promised I wouldn't, and I promised to make it worth the wait." The simple text sent warmth spiraling through her chest. She settled on the burgundy dress. It made her feel confident, beautiful, like a woman worth crossing the city for. Her natural curls fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and she'd chosen lipstick the color of wine. Looking at herself one final time, Leah barely recognized the woman staring back. For months, she'd been playing it safe. Neutral colors, conservative styles, nothing that drew too much attention. But tonight, she looked like someone who might be brave enough to take a chance on something extraordinary. The signature room occupied the 95th floor of the John Hancock building, offering breathtaking views of Chicago's glittering skyline. As the elevator climbed toward the clouds, Leah's stomach fluttered with anticipation and terror in equal measure. The hostess led her to a corner table by the floor-to-ceiling windows, where Adrian was already waiting. He stood as she approached, and her breath caught in her throat. Gone was the corporate armor of expensive suits. Tonight he wore charcoal slacks and a midnight blue button-down that brought out his eyes, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. He looked relaxed, approachable, devastating. Leah. Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer. You look... He paused, shaking his head with a smile that made her knees weak. There aren't words. Thank you. She accepted his help with her chair, trying to ignore the electricity that shot through her when his fingers brushed her bare shoulders. This view is incredible. It is now, he said quietly, his eyes never leaving her face. Heat crept up her neck. Adrian. Sorry. He settled into the chair across from her, close enough that she could see the faint lines around his eyes when he smiled. I promised myself I'd be good tonight. No overwhelming you with 3 months' worth of stored-up feelings. 3 months' worth? She accepted a menu from the server, using it as a shield against his intense gaze. That's quite an accumulation. You have no idea. His voice dropped to that warm rasp that made her skin tingle. But we're not talking about that night, remember? Your rules. Leah peeked over her menu. Maybe we could bend the rules. Just a little. Adrian's smile could have powered the city below them. I was hoping you'd say that. The server took their orders, salmon for her, steak for him, and retreated, leaving them alone with the sparkling city spread out beneath them like scattered diamonds. So, Adrian said, leaning back in his chair with studied casualness, tell me about Leah Sanders, the real version, not the polished interview candidate. What do you want to know? Everything. The simple word held a weight that made her pulse quicken. Where did you grow up? What made you want marketing? What do you do when you're not being terrifyingly professional? Leah laughed, surprised by how easy it felt to talk to him. I grew up in Milwaukee. My mom's a teacher. My dad's an accountant. Very normal, very stable, very, she searched for the word, predictable. And you chose the opposite? I chose safety. She traced the rim of her wine glass with one finger. Marketing felt practical. Good job security, decent pay, transferable skills. Not particularly exciting, but safe, Adrian finished, like running away from hotel rooms at dawn. Their eyes met across the table, and the air between them shimmered with unspoken truth. Why did you run, Leah? His voice was gentle, no accusation, just curiosity. Help me understand. She was quiet for a long moment, gathering courage she didn't know she possessed. Because you scared me. I scared you? The way you looked at me. Like I mattered. Like I was someone worth staying for. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I'd never had anyone look at me like that before. Adrian leaned forward, his expression intense. And that frightened you? Terrified me. She took a sip of wine, liquid courage sliding down her throat. I had this whole plan, you see. Graduate, get a job, work my way up, save money, maybe find someone nice and stable who wanted the same things I wanted. Let me guess. White picket fence, 2.5 kids and a retirement plan. Something like that. She smiled ruefully. And then there was you. This beautiful, successful man who made me forget every rule I'd ever made for myself, who made me want things I'd never even dreamed of wanting. What kind of things? The question hung between them, dangerous and irresistible. Mornings, she said softly. I used to hate mornings. But that morning with you, I wanted 1,000 more just like it. I wanted to wake up in your arms and make you coffee and argue about what to watch on TV. I wanted lazy Sundays and spontaneous trips and... She trailed off, cheeks burning. And I wanted to matter to someone the way you made me feel like I mattered that night. Adrian reached across the table, covering her hand with his. You do matter, Leah. You matter so much that I've spent 3 months turning my life upside down, just for the chance to sit across from you again. But that's exactly why I had to leave, she said, not pulling away from his touch. Men like you don't fall for women like me. Not really. Not for keeps. Women like you. Adrian's voice held a dangerous edge. What does that mean? Ordinary women. Women with student debt and 5-year plans and sensible shoes. Look at me. The command was soft, but irresistible. When she met his eyes, his expression was fierce. There is nothing ordinary about you. Nothing ordinary about the way you laugh like music, or the way you bite your lip when you're thinking, or the way you look at the world like you're seeing it for the first time. Tears pricked at her eyes. Adrian. I left everything in Boston for you, Leah. My apartment, my friends, a promotion I'd been working toward for 2 years. I left it all because the thought of never seeing you again was unbearable. That's insane. Maybe. His thumb traced across her knuckles. But I'd rather be insane with you than sane without you. The server appeared with their entrees, forcing them to separate their hands. But even as they ate, the connection between them pulsed like a living thing. They talked about everything: his childhood in Connecticut, her college years, their favorite books and worst fears. The conversation flowed like they'd known each other for years, instead of one perfect night and one complicated day. "Can I ask you something?" Leah said as they shared chocolate soufflé for dessert. "Anything. That night, was it just about the physical connection for you?" "The chemistry." Adrian set down his spoon, considering the question with the seriousness it deserved. "The chemistry was intense, undeniable, but that's not what made me look for you. What did? The way you laughed at my terrible architect jokes. The way you listened like every word I said mattered. The way you looked at the city like you were seeing magic instead of just buildings." He paused. "And the way you looked at me like I was someone worth knowing, not just someone worth spending a night with." Leah's heart constricted. "You are worth knowing. So are you." His smile was soft, vulnerable. "That's what I've been trying to tell you." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the city twinkling below them like a constellation of possibilities. "Leah, yes, I know this is complicated. I know there are rules and policies and 100 reasons why we shouldn't be sitting here together, but I need you to know something." She held her breath. "I'm not playing games with you. I'm not looking for a fling or an office romance or something to pass the time. When I say you matter to me, I mean you matter. Forever kind of matter." The words hit her like lightning, illuminating every dark corner of her carefully guarded heart. "Forever is a big word," she whispered. "It's the only word that fits." He reached for her hand again. "I'm not asking you to make any decisions tonight. I'm just asking you to give us a chance. A real chance." Leah looked into his eyes, those beautiful blue eyes that had haunted her dreams, and felt herself falling. Not the terrifying free fall she'd experienced 3 months ago, but something softer, warmer, like sinking into a warm bath. "Okay," she breathed. "Okay? A real chance." She smiled, feeling lighter than she had in months. "But I have one condition. Name it. No more running, from either of us. If this gets complicated, if it gets messy, if it gets scary, we face it together." Adrian's smile was radiant. "Deal." As they left the restaurant, walking slowly toward the elevators, Adrian caught her hand in his. "Can I take you home?" he asked. "To my apartment?" Her pulse quickened. "To your front door," he clarified with a gentle smile. "I want to do this right, Leah. I want to court you, date you, earn the right to be in your life. No rushing, no pressure. Just us, figuring this out together." And in that moment, she realized that sometimes the scariest thing wasn't falling. It was learning to trust someone enough to catch you. Some temptations grow stronger the more you try to resist them. 2 weeks had passed since their dinner at the signature room, and Leah was beginning to understand what exquisite torture meant. Adrian was keeping his word, courting her with old-fashioned patience that was both maddening and completely irresistible. Every morning, she found a single white tulip on her desk with a handwritten note. Never anything inappropriate for the office, just small observations that made her heart flutter. "Your presentation yesterday was brilliant. A or you have the most beautiful laugh. A or simply thinking of you. A." It was romantic and professional and absolutely driving her insane. "Sure you're glowing," announced Jessa, her cubicle neighbor and the closest thing she had to a work friend. The petite redhead perched on the edge of Leah's desk, eyeing the latest tulip with obvious curiosity. "Seriously, you've been glowing for 2 weeks. It's either really good skincare or really good—" "Coffee," Leah interrupted quickly, though her cheeks warmed. "I've been sleeping better." "Uh-huh." Jessa's green eyes sparkled with mischief. "Does this better sleep have anything to do with our devastatingly handsome new director? Because I've noticed the way he looks at you during meetings, like you're the only person in the room." Leah's stomach fluttered. She'd noticed too, the way Adrian's eyes would find hers across the conference table, holding her gaze just a heartbeat too long before he looked away. The way he'd brush past her chair when reviewing documents, his cologne making her dizzy. The way he'd say her name during presentations, like it was a secret only they shared. "Mr. Cole is professional," she said, but even she could hear the lack of conviction in her voice. "Professional?" Jessa snorted. "Honey, that man looks at you like he wants to eat you alive, in the best possible way." Before Leah could respond, the subject of their conversation appeared in the doorway of her cubicle. Adrian stood there in a charcoal grey suit that hugged his broad shoulders perfectly, holding a stack of files and wearing an expression that was carefully neutral, except for the heat in his blue eyes when they met hers. "Ms. Sanders," he said formally, though his voice carried that familiar rasp that made her skin tingle. "Could I see you in my office? We need to discuss the Morrison account." "Of course, Mr. Cole." Leah stood on slightly unsteady legs, smoothing her navy dress. She'd chosen it because it was professional and appropriate, not because Adrian had mentioned once that navy was his favorite color. Jessa made a soft sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. "I'll just hold down the fort here." Adrian's office was on the corner of the floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered stunning views of the city. As soon as Leah entered and closed the door behind her, the careful professional mask slipped from Adrian's face. "Hi," he said softly, and the simple word carried the weight of 2 weeks' worth of stolen glances and careful restraint. "Hi yourself." She moved toward his desk, but not too close. They'd learned that proximity made thinking difficult. "The Morrison account is actually doing fine." Adrian loosened his tie slightly, and the small gesture made her mouth go dry. "I just needed to see you. Really see you. Not the polished professional version." "Adrian," she started, but he held up a hand. "I know. We agreed to keep things separate here, but Leah, it's been 2 weeks of watching you laugh with other people, of sitting across from you in meetings and pretending I don't remember exactly how you sound when you say my name in the dark." Heat pooled low in her stomach. "You can't say things like that here." "Then where can I say them?" He moved around the desk, stopping just close enough that she could smell his cologne. "We've had 3 dates, all perfectly respectable. Dinner, the art museum, that bookstore you love, and every single time I've walked you to your door and kissed your cheek like some Victorian gentleman. You said you wanted to do this right," she reminded him, though her voice was breathier than intended. "I do want to do this right, but Leah—" He reached out, almost touching her face before dropping his hand. "I'm losing my mind." The confession hit her like lightning, because she was losing her mind too, lying awake at night thinking about his hands, remembering the weight of his body against hers, imagining what it would feel like to wake up in his arms again. "What are you saying?" she whispered. "I'm saying that trying to keep this professional is killing me." His eyes darkened. "I'm saying that every time I see you, I have to remind myself why I can't pull you into my arms and kiss you until we both forget there's a world outside this room." Leah's breath caught. "Adrian, tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me I'm imagining this tension that's so thick I can barely breathe when you're around." She opened her mouth to lie, to maintain the professional boundaries they'd so carefully constructed. But looking into his eyes, eyes that had haunted her dreams for 3 months and were now in front of her every day, she couldn't do it. "I feel it," she admitted quietly. "God, I feel it so much, I can barely think straight." Adrian's control snapped. In 2 quick strides, he backed her against the door, his hands braced on either side of her head, not touching but close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Do you know what it does to me?" he said, his voice low and rough. "Watching you bite your lip during meetings? Hearing you laugh with other people when all I want is to be the one making you smile?" "Adrian, someone could—" "The door's locked," he murmured. "I locked it the moment you walked in." The admission sent fire racing through her veins. "That's not very professional of you, Mr. Cole." His smile was pure sin. "There's nothing professional about what I'm thinking right now, Miss Sanders." "What are you thinking?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. "I'm thinking about that night in Chicago, about how you felt in my arms, how you said my name like a prayer." His face was inches from hers now, close enough that she could see the flecks of silver in his blue eyes. "I'm thinking about how many cold showers I've taken in the past 2 weeks. I'm thinking about how much I want to kiss you right now, that it's physically painful." Leah's heart hammered against her ribs. Someone could knock. Let them. We could get in trouble. Worth it. "Adrian," she breathed, but it came out like a plea rather than a protest. "Say no," he whispered, his lips hovering just above hers. "Say no and I'll back away. We'll discuss the Morrison account like civilized professionals, and I'll go back to my desk and pretend my heart isn't beating out of my chest." She looked into his eyes and saw her own desperation reflected back at her, saw months of longing and weeks of careful restraint finally reaching their breaking point. "I can't," she whispered. "Can't what?" "Say no to you. I've never been able to say no to you." The kiss that followed was nothing like the sweet, hesitant touches they'd shared on their dates. This was hunger, need, months of denial finally breaking free. Adrian's hands tangled in her hair as she pulled him closer, her fingers fisting in his shirt. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "We're in trouble," he murmured. "Such trouble," she agreed, but she was smiling. I have a conference call in 10 minutes. And I have a presentation to finish. Neither of them moved. Leah, yes? Have dinner with me tonight. My apartment this time. Let me cook for you. The invitation hung between them, loaded with promise and possibility. Your apartment, she repeated, her pulse quickening. Just dinner, he said, though his eyes promised much more. Unless you want more, but no pressure, no expectations. Just us. She looked into his face, this beautiful, successful, incredibly patient man who turned his life upside down for her, and felt herself falling deeper. Okay, she breathed. Okay? Your apartment. 7 o'clock. She reached up and straightened his tie, the simple gesture intimate in its domesticity. But Adrian, yes? I'm not running away this time. His smile was radiant. Promise? I promise. A knock on the door made them spring apart, just as Adrian's assistant's voice called through the wood. Mr. Cole, your 3 o'clock is here. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, trying to compose himself. Be right there, Hannah. He looked back at Leah, who was smoothing her dress and trying to calm her racing heart. 7 o'clock, he said softly. 7 o'clock, she confirmed. As she reached for the door handle, Adrian caught her hand. Leah, yes. Wear the burgundy dress. The one from our first dinner. Heat flooded her cheeks. Why? Because you look incredible in it, and because I've been dreaming about taking it off you. And in that moment, she realized that some lines weren't meant to be drawn, they were meant to be crossed. Some moments are worth waiting 3 months and 2 weeks for. Leah stood outside Adrian's apartment building at exactly 7 o'clock, her heart hammering against her ribs like a caged bird. She wore the burgundy dress as requested, paired with black heels and the pearl earrings her grandmother had given her, her good luck charm for moments that mattered. This moment definitely mattered. The building was elegant, but not ostentatious, all clean lines and warm brick in Lincoln Park. Through the glass doors, she could see a doorman who nodded politely as she approached. Leah Sanders for Adrian Cole, she told him, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. Of course, Miss Sanders. Mr. Cole is expecting you. 23rd floor, apartment 2304. The elevator ride felt endless. 23 floors to think about what she was doing. 23 floors to remember the last time they'd been alone together, without the safety net of public spaces and professional boundaries. 23 floors to wonder if she was making the biggest mistake of her life, or the best decision. When the elevator doors opened, Adrian was waiting in his doorway. He'd changed out of his suit into dark jeans and a soft grey sweater that clung to his broad shoulders. His feet were bare, and something about that small detail, the intimacy of seeing him without shoes, made her stomach flutter. Hi, he said softly, and the simple greeting carried the weight of everything unspoken between them. Hi, she stepped off the elevator, suddenly nervous. I brought wine. You didn't have to. He accepted the bottle with a smile that made her knees weak. But thank you. Come in. His apartment was exactly what she'd expected. Masculine but warm, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered stunning views of Lincoln Park Zoo. The furniture was expensive but comfortable, all dark wood and rich fabrics. Architectural drawings covered one wall, and she recognized his neat handwriting in the margins. It's beautiful, she said, meaning it. Thank you. Can I take your coat? As he helped her out of her jacket, his fingers brushed the back of her neck, sending shivers down her spine. The simple touch was electric, familiar, like coming home after a long journey. Something smells incredible, she said, following him toward the kitchen. Chicken masala, roasted vegetables, and I may have attempted homemade bread. He opened the wine she'd brought with practiced ease. Fair warning, my cooking is hit or miss. I'm sure it's perfect. She accepted the glass of wine he offered, their fingers brushing as he passed it to her. Even that small contact sent heat racing through her body. They'd touched more intimately than this. She'd memorized every inch of his body during that perfect night in Chicago, but somehow this felt more significant, more real. Can I help with anything? She asked. Just keep me company. Adrian moved around the kitchen with easy confidence, checking the oven, stirring something fragrant on the stove. Tell me about your day. The real version, not the sanitized work-appropriate one. Leah settled onto a bar stool at the kitchen island, watching him cook. Jessa thinks we're having an affair. Adrian paused mid-stir. Does she now? She says you look at me like you want to eat me alive. Heat crept up her neck as she repeated her friend's words. In the best possible way, apparently. Smart woman. Adrian's eyes met hers across the island, dark and intense. She's not wrong. The admission hung between them like a live wire. Leah took a sip of wine, trying to calm her racing pulse. Adrian, too much? He leaned against the counter, studying her face. I promised myself I'd be good tonight. Let you set the pace. What if I don't want you to be good? The question slipped out before she could stop it, bold and brazen and completely unlike her usual careful self. Adrian went very still. Leah, I mean it. She stood, moving around the island toward him. I've spent 3 months trying to forget you, 2 weeks trying to be professional, and I'm tired of pretending this is just about dinner. What's it about then? She stopped directly in front of him, close enough to see the flecks of silver in his blue eyes, close enough to smell his cologne mixed with the scents of cooking food. It's about the fact that I've been in love with you since that night in Chicago, and I'm tired of being scared of it. Adrian's breath caught. You love me? Terrifyingly, completely, irrevocably. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I love your laugh and your terrible jokes and the way you look at me like I'm the most important thing in your world. I love how patient you've been, how gentle, how you've let me set the rules even when I could see it was killing you. Leah. He reached up to cup her face, thumbs tracing her cheekbones. I love you, she repeated, the words gaining strength with repetition. And I don't want to wait anymore. Are you sure? His voice was rough with restraint. Because once we cross this line, really cross it, there's no going back. No more careful boundaries. No more pretending this is casual. I don't want casual. She covered his hands with hers. I want you, all of you, for keeps. The kiss that followed was different from the desperate collision in his office. This was certain, deliberate, a promise being made with lips and breath and heartbeats. Adrian's hands tangled in her hair as she pressed closer, her body remembering the perfect fit of him against her. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. I love you too, he said quietly. So much that these past 3 months felt like dying, so much that I would have waited forever if that's what you needed. I don't need forever. I just need you. The food, he said suddenly, but made no move to check on it. Can wait, she finished, standing on her toes to kiss him again. This time he didn't hold back. His hands spanned her waist, lifting her onto the kitchen island as he stepped between her legs. The burgundy dress rode up slightly, and his palms skimmed her thighs, making her gasp against his mouth. God, I've missed this, he murmured against her neck. Missed you. Then don't let me go again. Never. The word was a vow. Never again. The timer on the oven chose that moment to chime insistently. Adrian pulled back with a rueful smile. Dinner, he said apologetically. Right. Dinner. Leah slid off the counter, her legs unsteady. We should probably eat. We should, he agreed, but his eyes never left her face. But Leah? Yes? After dinner. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to that rough whisper that made her skin burn. I'm not letting you out of my sight. We have 3 months to make up for. Heat pooled low in her belly. Is that a promise? It's a guarantee. Dinner was delicious. Adrian was a better cook than he'd claimed, but Leah barely tasted any of it. Every casual touch as he passed her bread, every time their knees bumped under the small dining table, every smile and laugh and moment of easy conversation only heightened the anticipation building between them. They talked about everything and nothing. Work drama that seemed unimportant outside the office, his family in Connecticut, her plans for the weekend. Normal conversation, the kind that couples had over shared meals, but underneath it all was the electric awareness that this was their first dinner as people who'd finally admitted the truth. I have a confession, Adrian said as they cleared the dishes together. Oh? That night in Chicago when you left? He set down the plates and turned to face her. I woke up the moment you got out of bed. Leah's hands stilled on the wine glasses. You were awake. I felt you leave the bed, heard you getting dressed. I lay there listening to you gather your things, waiting for you to change your mind. Why didn't you say anything? Because you were so quiet, so careful not to wake me. You'd made your choice, and I thought maybe I'd imagined how good it was between us. Maybe it was just the wine and the city lights and the romance of it all. Leah set down the glasses and moved toward him. It wasn't the wine. I know that now. His hands found her waist, pulling her closer. But that morning, watching you walk away, it felt like losing something I didn't even know I needed. I'm not walking away anymore. Promise? Promise. This time, when he kissed her, there was no hesitation, no careful restraint. This was 3 months of longing finally given permission. 2 people who'd found their way back to each other despite every obstacle. Leah, he breathed against her lips. Yes, stay with me. Not just tonight. Really stay. She looked into his eyes, those beautiful blue eyes that had haunted her dreams, and saw her future written there. Saw lazy Sunday mornings and shared coffee and arguments about what to watch on TV. Saw the life she'd been too scared to want 3 months ago. Yes, she whispered. Yes? Yes to staying. Yes to not running. Yes to whatever this becomes. Adrian's smile was radiant. Then come to bed with me. Let me love you the way I've been dreaming about for 3 months. And in that moment, she realized that coming home had nothing to do with a place, and everything to do with the person who made you brave enough to stay. Some mornings change everything, and some people are worth changing everything for. Leah woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the warm weight of Adrian's arm around her waist. For a moment, she lay perfectly still, afraid that moving might shatter the perfect bubble of contentment wrapped around them like silk sheets. This was what she'd run from 3 months ago, this feeling of absolute rightness, of finding a place in the world that fit her perfectly. But this morning, instead of terror, she felt only peace. "Good morning, beautiful." Adrian's voice was rough with sleep, and she felt his lips press against her shoulder. "Good morning." She turned in his arms, taking in the sight of him in the golden morning light. His dark hair was tousled, and stubble shadowed his jaw, making him look younger and infinitely more touchable. "How long have you been awake?" "About an hour." His fingers traced lazy patterns on her bare back. "I didn't want to wake you, but I also couldn't stop watching you sleep. Is that creepy?" "Completely," she said with a smile that took any sting out of the words. "I love it." His answering grin was radiant. "I love waking up with you. I love that you're here, that you stayed, that I get to see you with messy hair and no makeup, and somehow you're even more beautiful than I remembered." Heat crept up her neck. Even after last night, after hours of whispered confessions and desperate touches, and the kind of intimacy that rewrote the definition of the word, he could still make her blush with simple honesty. "What time is it?" she asked, though part of her didn't care if they were late for work, late for life, late for everything except this moment. 7:30. His thumb traced her bottom lip. "We have time." "Time for what?" "Coffee? Breakfast? Convincing you to call in sick so we can spend the day in bed." The suggestion sent heat spiraling through her, but reality was already creeping in around the edges of their perfect morning. "Adrian, I know." He pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. "Real-world responsibilities? The fact that we both have jobs to keep. Speaking of which, she propped herself up on her elbow, studying his face. "What do we do about work? About us?" It was the question they'd been carefully avoiding, but it hung between them now like morning fog, impossible to ignore. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his fingers still trailing patterns on her skin. "What do you want to do?" "I want to march into that office and tell everyone that I'm head over heels in love with you," she said honestly. "I want to hold your hand in meetings and kiss you in elevators and not care who sees." But that's not realistic. There are policies, protocols, potential conflicts of interest." She sighed, settling back against his chest. "We could get in serious trouble." "We could." His arms tightened around her. "Or we could be smart about it." "What does smart look like?" "Disclosure to HR, maybe a transfer. One of us moves to a different department so there's no direct reporting relationship." Leah's stomach clenched. "You want me to transfer?" "God, no." The vehemence in his voice surprised her. "Leah, you're brilliant at what you do. Your ideas for the Morrison campaign were inspired, and your presentation style is flawless. I don't want you to go anywhere." "Then what are you suggesting?" "I transfer." "I've been here 3 months. You were here first. This is your department, your team." "There's a position opening up in the Seattle office." "Seattle?" She sat up abruptly, the sheet clutched to her chest. "Adrian, that's 3,000 miles away. It's temporary, maybe a year while we figure things out, let the dust settle. Then I could come back to a different department, or you could come with me." "Stop." The word came out sharper than she'd intended. "Just stop." Adrian sat up too, concern creasing his features. "Leah, what is it?" "This." She gestured between them, then around the room. "Last night, you asked me to stay. Really stay. And now, 12 hours later, you're talking about moving across the country? To protect us, to protect your career. By sacrificing yours?" She slipped out of bed, reaching for his shirt from the night before, and pulling it over her head. It fell to mid-thigh, smelling like his cologne and their shared night. "That's not fair to you." Adrian rose too, magnificent and unself-conscious in the morning light. He caught her hands, pulling her closer. "Leah, I would move to the moon if it meant keeping you in my life. Seattle is nothing. It's not nothing. It's your career, your life here, everything you've built. Everything I've built doesn't matter without you. The simple statement hit her like lightning. Don't you understand? I spent 3 months in Seattle already. That's where I was working when I took this job. I hated every minute of it because you weren't there. Adrian, I love you, he said fiercely. I love you more than any job, any city, any carefully laid plan. If choosing between my career and you means I choose you every single time. Tears pricked at her eyes. That's not a choice you should have to make. Then what do you suggest? She was quiet for a long moment, thinking. They couldn't stay the way they were. The tension of hiding their relationship would destroy them both, but the thought of him leaving, of going back to a world where she couldn't see him every day, was unbearable. What if, she started, then stopped, the idea too fragile to voice. What if what? What if we don't hide? What if we go to HR together, disclose the relationship, and see what options they give us? Adrian's eyebrows rose. You want to go public? I want to stop pretending that what we have is anything less than extraordinary. She stepped closer, her hands flat against his chest. I'm tired of stolen moments and careful boundaries. If they want to fire me for falling in love with you, then maybe this isn't the right company for me anyway. Leah, think about this. I am thinking. For the first time in my life, I'm thinking with my heart instead of my head. She rose up on her toes, pressing a soft kiss to his lips. You're worth the risk, Adrian. We're worth the risk. His smile was devastating. Are you sure? Completely sure. But we do this together. No noble sacrifices, no one-sided decisions. Whatever happens, we face it as a team. A team, he repeated like the word was precious. I like the sound of that. Good, because you're stuck with me now. Promise? Promise. An hour later, they stood outside Hartwell and Associates, having arrived in Adrian's car like the couple they'd finally admitted to being. Leah had gone home to change. Adrian had driven her, waiting like a gentleman while she showered and put on a fresh dress, but the evidence of their night together was written all over both their faces. They looked like people who'd spent the night making love and waking up in each other's arms, happy, glowing, completely transparent. Ready? Adrian asked, his hand finding hers as they approached the building. Ready. She squeezed his fingers, drawing strength from his steady presence. Whatever happens next, we'll handle it. Together, he agreed. They entered the building hand in hand, ignoring the curious stares from the security guard and early arriving colleagues. In the elevator, Adrian pressed a soft kiss to her temple. No regrets? He asked. Leah looked at their joined hands, at this man who'd turned his life upside down for her, who was willing to face professional consequences for the chance to love her openly. Not a single one, she said firmly. The elevator doors opened onto their floor, where Jessa was already at her desk with a cup of coffee and a knowing smile. Well, she said as they walked past, still holding hands, this should be interesting. And in that moment, Leah realized that some risks were worth taking, especially when you had the right person to take them with. Some love stories are worth becoming the office entertainment. The first hour of their public relationship was far from anticlimactic. In fact, Leah was starting to think they'd accidentally become the most interesting thing to happen at Hartwell and Associates since someone brought a therapy dog to the Christmas party. I knew it, Jessa practically shouted across the cubicles, causing half the floor to look up from their computers. I called it from day one. Sarah from accounting owes me $20. You bet on us, Leah asked, settling into her desk chair with a cup of coffee that Adrian had thoughtfully brought her, along with a note that simply said, Good morning. Beautiful, honey. The entire office bet on you two. The pool was up to $300. Jessa perched on the edge of Leah's desk, grinning like the Cheshire Cat. Though I have to say, showing up holding hands was a power move. Very look at us being gorgeous together energy. From across the bullpen, Marcus from IT called out, So are we getting a wedding invitation or what? Marcus? Leah's face burned with embarrassment, but she was laughing. What? I'm just asking for planning purposes. I need to know if I should save money for a gift. We've been officially dating for approximately 14 hours. Adrian's voice carried across the office as he approached her desk. Let's maybe table the wedding talk for at least another day. 14 hours? Jessa raised an eyebrow. That seems oddly specific. Adrian's smile was pure mischief as he handed Leah her coffee. I'm an architect. I'm precise about measurements and timing. Uh-huh. Jessa's eyes sparkled with curiosity. And what exactly happened 14 hours ago that made this official? Leah nearly choked on her coffee. Jessa? What? I'm invested in this love story now. We all are. She gestured around the office, where several heads were indeed turned in their direction with barely concealed interest. "Do you realize you two have been providing free entertainment for months? The longing glances, the professional meetings that lasted way too long, the flowers that were definitely not from a client." "You all knew about the flowers?" Adrian asked, looking amused. "Sweetie," called Beth from reception, "we've been tracking this romance since your second week. The betting pool has subcategories." "Subcategories," Leah repeated faintly. "When you'd get together, where it would happen, whether you'd try to hide it." Beth counted on her fingers. "Oh, and whether Mr. Cole would crack first or if you would. For the record, I had money on him making the first move." "Technically," Adrian said, settling on the edge of Leah's desk in a way that made her pulse quicken, "she made the first move last night." "Adrian!" Leah swatted at him, her face flaming. "Too much information?" he asked innocently. "Way too much." But she was laughing, and something warm and wonderful bloomed in her chest. This was what she'd been afraid of, being the center of attention, having her private life become office gossip. But instead of feeling exposed or uncomfortable, she felt supported, like the entire office was rooting for them. "All right, people," came a stern voice from across the room. "Some of us have work to do." Everyone turned to see Gloria from HR approaching, and Leah felt her stomach clench with anxiety. Here it comes, she thought, the lecture about office policies and professional conduct. "Miss Sanders, Mr. Cole," Gloria said formally, then paused. "Congratulations." "I'm sorry." Leah blinked. Gloria's stern expression cracked into something that might have been a smile. "I said congratulations. It's about time you two figured it out. You're not here to lecture us about company policy." "Oh, I am. You'll need to file the appropriate paperwork with HR to disclose your relationship. But honestly," Gloria looked around at the gathered crowd of co-workers, "half the office has been waiting for this since Mr. Cole's first week. The man asked 3 different people about you before he even officially started." "He did?" Leah turned to look at Adrian, who had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I may have made some inquiries," he admitted. "What kind of inquiries?" Jessa demanded, clearly delighting in this revelation. "Nothing inappropriate. Just, you know, whether you were single, what you liked, whether you drank coffee or tea." "That's why you always brought me coffee," Leah realized. "Not tea, among other things." His smile was soft, private, meant just for her despite their very public audience. "This is better than the soaps," Marcus declared from his desk. "Speaking of which," Gloria interjected, back to business mode, "you'll both need to complete relationship disclosure forms by Friday. And Mr. Cole will need to discuss potential conflicts of interest regarding project assignments." "Of course." Adrian nodded seriously. "Whatever's needed to keep things appropriate." "Good. Also," Gloria's expression softened again, "for what it's worth, the executive board is pleased. They like seeing their employees happy. Happy employees are productive employees." "So we're not in trouble?" Leah asked. "Not unless you start making out in conference rooms," Gloria said dryly. "Then we'll have problems." "Noted," Adrian said solemnly, though his eyes danced with mischief. After Gloria left, the excitement gradually died down as people returned to their work. But throughout the morning, Leah found herself intercepted by various co-workers offering congratulations, relationship advice, and good-natured teasing. "This is surreal," she told Adrian during their lunch break as they sat in the break room, sharing a sandwich and pretending not to notice the not-so-subtle glances from other employees. "Good surreal or bad surreal?" "Good, definitely good." She reached over and squeezed his hand. "I was so worried about people's reactions, but everyone seems genuinely happy for us. Why does that surprise you? Because I've never been the kind of person who gets the fairy tale. I'm the responsible one, the practical one, the one who makes safe choices and doesn't take risks." Adrian lifted their joined hands and pressed a kiss to her knuckles. "And now I'm the one who's madly in love with her boss and doesn't care who knows it." The words came out easier than she'd expected. Natural and right. "Madly in love?" His smile was radiant. "Completely, totally, embarrassingly in love," she confirmed, feeling lighter with each word. "Good," he said, leaning closer, "because I'm about to do something that might get us in trouble with Gloria." "What are you—" He kissed her, right there in the break room, soft and sweet and completely unprofessional. When they broke apart, the room had gone quiet. Then someone started clapping. "Finally!" Jessa cheered from the doorway. "Do you know how painful it's been watching you two dance around each other?" "Get a room," Marcus called out, but he was grinning. "We have rooms." Adrian said, without taking his eyes off Leah. Several, in fact. Too much information, came a chorus of voices. Leah buried her face in her hands, laughing until her sides hurt. I can't believe this is my life now. Better get used to it, Jessa said, settling into a chair across from them. Because, honey, this office has adopted your love story as communal property. You're stuck with us as your very invested audience. Could be worse, Adrian mused. We could be the couple that everyone secretly hates. Never, Beth called from the kitchen area where she was making tea. You two are the office sweethearts now, it's official. And in that moment, Leah realized that sometimes the best love stories were the ones that made everyone around you believe in happy endings too. Some love stories are written in coffee cups and stolen glances, and the way someone says your name. 3 weeks into their official relationship, Leah was beginning to understand that dating Adrian Cole was like being the starring role in the office's favorite romantic comedy. Every day brought new entertainment for their co-workers, and new ways for Adrian to surprise her with just how thoughtful love could be. He's ruining it for the rest of us, complained Jake from finance, watching Adrian place a fresh cup of coffee and a chocolate croissant on Leah's desk. My wife saw your Instagram post about the surprise lunch he had delivered yesterday, and now she's asking why I never send her Thai food to work. Maybe because you usually forget her birthday? Jessa pointed out helpfully. That was 1 time. 3 times, Jake. 3. Leah bit back a smile as she opened the little note tucked under her coffee cup. Your presentation this morning was brilliant. The way you handled William's questions made me want to stand up and cheer. Also, you look beautiful in that dress. What does this one say? Jessa asked, not even pretending to respect privacy anymore. Jessa, come on. We're all living vicariously through your romance. It's like having a real-life fairy tale happening right here in our depressing corporate environment. From across the bullpen, Adrian's voice carried over. I can hear you all gossiping from here. Don't you people have work to do? We're working, Marcus called back. We're working very hard at being invested in your love life. Besides, added Sarah from accounting, you two are way more entertaining than anything on Netflix right now. Leah looked up to find Adrian walking toward her desk, a stack of folders in one hand and a look of fond exasperation on his face. 3 weeks of dating had only made him more attractive, something she hadn't thought was possible. Today he wore a charcoal suit with a pale blue shirt that brought out his eyes, and when he smiled at her, she still felt that familiar flutter in her stomach. Ignore them, he said, settling on the edge of her desk in a gesture that had become as natural as breathing. They're just jealous. Damn right we're jealous, Beth called from reception. Some of us have been married for 20 years, and our husbands think romance means not leaving dirty dishes in the sink. Low bar, Beth, Leah laughed. Very low bar, Adrian agreed. Speaking of which, I have something for you. Adrian, you don't have to keep bringing me things. The coffee is enough, the flowers are enough. It's not a thing, he interrupted, his smile turning mysterious. It's an experience. An experience. There's a food truck festival in Millennium Park this Saturday. I thought we could go, try terrible carnival food, argue about which funnel cake is better, and pretend we're not adults with actual responsibilities. The simple suggestion made her heart swell. That sounds perfect. Yeah? His smile was radiant. Good. Because I may have already told the food truck guy that my girlfriend has strong opinions about cheese fries, and he's promised to save us the good ones. You talked to a food truck operator about me? I talked to everyone about you, he said simply. You're my favorite subject. The collective awe from their co-workers was immediate and loud. Kill me now, Adrian muttered, but he was grinning. Never mind killing you, Jessa said dreamily. I'm adding that to my list of romantic things men should say. Right after you're my favorite subject comes I bought stock in the coffee company because you drink so much of it. That's oddly specific, Jess, Leah noted. A girl can dream. The morning flew by in a blur of presentations, client calls and the kind of routine work that felt infinitely better when punctuated by Adrian's presence. He had a meeting with the executives about the Morrison account, and Leah found herself missing him, even though he was just 2 floors up. Her phone buzzed with a text. Miss you already. Is that pathetic? She typed back. Completely pathetic. I love it. Conference room C in 10 minutes, I have something to show you. Is this a legitimate work thing, or are you just looking for an excuse to kiss me? Can't it be both? Leah grinned and gathered her laptop, ignoring Jessa's knowing look as she headed for the conference rooms. Conference room C was small and rarely used, tucked away at the end of the hall with a view of the courtyard. Adrian was already there, standing by the windows with his tie loosened and his sleeves rolled up. The sight of him never failed to make her pulse quicken. "So," she said, closing the door behind her, "what did you want to show me?" "This." He handed her a thick folder. "The Morrison account proposal. I wanted you to be the first to see it." Leah opened the folder, scanning the beautifully designed presentation. Her eyes widened as she read. "Adrian, this is incredible. The Sustainable Development Angle, the Community Partnership Program. This is exactly what they need. Keep reading." She flipped through more pages and her breath caught. "You listed me as co-project manager. If we get this account, it's going to be a massive undertaking. I'll need someone brilliant to help me manage it, someone who understands the client's needs as well as I do." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Someone I trust completely. But the promotion, the visibility, Adrian, this could make your career." "Our careers," he corrected. "Leah, I meant what I said that first night at dinner. I want to do this together, all of it." She looked up at him, this beautiful man who kept finding new ways to support her dreams, even as he chased his own. "What if we don't get the account? Then we'll find another one, and another one after that." His hands came up to frame her face. "But I think we're going to get this one. And when we do, Morrison Industries is going to discover that the best ideas come from teams that trust each other completely." "Teams," she teased, stepping closer. "Well, teams that are also crazy in love with each other," he amended, his smile soft and private. "Is that your professional opinion, Mr. Cole?" "My completely biased, thoroughly unprofessional, absolutely certain opinion, Ms. Sanders." The kiss that followed was gentle, celebratory, full of promise and possibility. When they broke apart, Leah rested her forehead against his. "I love you," she said, the words as natural as breathing now. "I love you too, more than I thought possible." A sharp knock on the conference room door made them spring apart, just as Gloria's voice called through the glass, "Mr. Cole, the Morrison representatives are here early." Adrian straightened his tie with lightning speed. "Be right there, Gloria." He turned back to Leah, his expression suddenly serious. "Wish me luck?" "You don't need luck. You have talent, preparation, and the best proposal they're going to see." She reached up and straightened his collar, the gesture intimate despite their professional surroundings. "But just in case, good luck." He kissed her quickly, softly. "If this works out, I'm taking you somewhere fancy to celebrate. And if it doesn't, then I'm taking you somewhere with really good wine and letting you tell me all the ways I can improve next time. Deal." As they left the conference room, Adrian heading toward the elevator and his presentation, Leah returning to her desk, she felt lighter than she had in months. Whatever happened with Morrison Industries, they would face it together. "How did it go?" Jessa asked as Leah settled back into her chair. "Good, really good." Leah opened her laptop, trying to focus on her afternoon tasks, but finding her mind wandering to Adrian's presentation upstairs. "He's going to get the account," Jessa said confidently. "How can you be so sure?" "Because he's Adrian Cole, and Adrian Cole doesn't do anything halfway. Plus," Jessa grinned, "he's got you as his secret weapon now. Love makes people brave, and brave people win big accounts." 2 hours later, Leah's phone rang. "Leah Sanders." "We got it." Adrian's voice was breathless with excitement. "We got the Morrison account. All of it. The full development project, the community partnerships, everything." Leah's heart soared. "Adrian, that's amazing." "There's more. They specifically requested you as co-project manager. Apparently your preliminary research impressed the hell out of them." "I can't believe it." "Believe it." And Leah, "Yes? Pack a bag for the weekend. I'm taking you to Napa to celebrate." "Napa? Adrian? That's what you deserve," he finished. "What we deserve. I'll pick you up Friday at 6. After she hung up, Leah sat staring at her phone in amazement. A year ago, she'd been a cautious marketing coordinator with a 5-year plan and sensible shoes. Now she was co-managing a multi-million-dollar account, madly in love with her former boss, and apparently going to wine country for the weekend. "Good news?" Jessa asked, "and the best news." "Let me guess. You got the account. Adrian's probably planning something ridiculously romantic to celebrate, and you're realizing that sometimes the best things in life are the ones you never saw coming." Leah looked around the office, at Jessa's knowing smile, at Marcus giving her a thumbs up from across the room, at Beth making heart shapes with her hands from the reception desk, and felt overwhelmed by gratitude. And in that moment, she realized that the best love stories weren't just about two people, they were about all the people who believed in love enough to cheer for it. Some moments are so perfect, they rewrite your understanding of what happiness can be. The drive to Napa Valley was everything Leah hadn't known she needed. Adrian's car windows were down, music playing softly, and the California countryside rolled past in waves of gold and green. She'd packed the burgundy dress again. It had become their unofficial special occasions outfit, along with comfortable clothes for wine tasting and a racing heart full of anticipation. "You're quiet," Adrian said, reaching over to take her hand as they cruised through the valley. "Everything okay?" "Perfect," she said, meaning it completely. "I'm just taking it all in. The scenery, everything." She squeezed his fingers. 6 months ago, if someone had told me I'd be driving through wine country with the man I love, celebrating a career breakthrough, I would have laughed. And now? Now I'm wondering why I waited so long to take chances. Adrian's smile was warm as sunshine. Sometimes the best things are worth waiting for, even if we don't know we're waiting. The bed and breakfast he'd chosen was exactly the kind of place that existed in romantic movies. A Victorian mansion surrounded by vineyards, with wraparound porches and rooms that overlooked rolling hills covered in grapevines. Their suite was on the 2nd floor, all antique furniture and French doors that opened onto a private balcony. "Adrian," Leah breathed, taking in the view. "This is incredible. Wait until you see it at sunset." He set their bags down and came to stand behind her, his arms circling her waist. "The whole valley turns gold." She leaned back against his chest, feeling utterly content. "How did you find this place?" "Research. I may have spent entirely too much time reading reviews and looking at photos, trying to find somewhere that would be perfect for celebrating with you. You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "Yes, I did." He pressed a kiss to the side of her neck that made her shiver. "Leah, we just landed the biggest account of our careers. You're about to become the youngest co-project manager in the company's history. And more importantly," he turned her in his arms, "I'm celebrating all of it with the woman I love. If that's not worth the best weekend I can possibly plan, nothing is." The way he looked at her, like she was precious beyond measure, still took her breath away. "So what's the plan?" she asked, stepping closer until they were barely a breath apart. "Wine tasting at 3 wineries, dinner at a restaurant that supposedly has the best view in the valley, and," his smile turned mysterious, "a surprise." "What kind of surprise?" "The kind that would be ruined if I told you." They spent the afternoon wandering through vineyards, tasting wines with names like Passionate Kiss and Forever Yours that made them laugh and blush in equal measure. Adrian was relaxed in a way she'd never seen before. No suits, no meetings, no careful professional boundaries, just him in dark jeans and a soft blue shirt, his hand warm in hers, talking about everything from wine to architecture to the way the light fell across the vines. "This one," said Eleanor, their tour guide at the 3rd winery, pouring them each a glass of deep red wine, "is our most popular vintage for proposals." "Proposals?" Leah nearly choked on her sip. "Oh yes, we have at least one proposal a week here during the summer. Something about the romance of wine country brings out the romantic in people." Eleanor winked at Adrian, "Though I suspect you two don't need any help in that department." Leah felt heat creep up her neck as Adrian's eyes met hers across the tasting bar. "What makes you say that?" he asked, his voice carefully casual. "The way you look at each other," Eleanor said matter-of-factly, "like you can't quite believe your luck. That's true love right there." As they walked back to the car, Leah found herself stealing glances at Adrian. The conversation about proposals had stirred something in her chest. Not panic, like she might have expected, but a warm flutter of possibility. "Penny for your thoughts," Adrian said as they drove toward the restaurant, just thinking about what Elena said. "About proposals." His knuckles went slightly white on the steering wheel. "About the way we look at each other." She studied his profile, the strong line of his jaw, the way his hair caught the late afternoon light. "Do you think she's right?" "About what?" "That we look like we can't believe our luck." Adrian was quiet for a moment, then pulled the car over at a scenic overlook. Below them the valley spread out like a patchwork quilt, vineyards and rolling hills painted gold by the setting sun. "Leah," he said, turning to face her, "I need to tell you something." Her heart stuttered. "Okay. I can't believe my luck. Every single day I wake up and can't believe that you're in my life, that you chose me, that you stayed, that you're here with me celebrating something that feels like the beginning of everything I've ever wanted. Adrian, I love you so much it scares me sometimes," he continued, his voice rough with emotion. "I love your laugh and your terrible morning hair and the way you bite your lip when you're concentrating. I love how brilliant you are and how brave you've become and how you make me want to be the best version of myself. Tears pricked at her eyes. I love you too. I know, and that's what I can't believe. He reached out to cup her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. That someone like you could love someone like me back. Someone like me. Adrian, you're incredible. You're successful and gorgeous and kind, and someone like me who reorganized his entire life around the slim hope of finding you again. His smile was soft, vulnerable. Someone who's so crazy about you that he practices conversations in the mirror because he wants to make sure he says the right things to make you smile. You practice conversations about me? Embarrassing but true. He leaned closer, forehead resting against hers. Leah, I want to ask you something, and I need you to know there's no pressure, no expectations, just honesty. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Okay, where do you see us in a year? The question hung between them, loaded with possibility and hope, and the weight of a future she'd never let herself fully imagine. Honestly, I see us in your apartment, our apartment, arguing about what to make for dinner because we both had long days, but neither of us wants to order takeout again. She smiled as the image formed in her mind. I see us working on projects together, maybe traveling for business, definitely traveling for fun. I see lazy Sunday mornings and coffee that you bring me in bed because you always wake up first. And I see us so happy it's disgusting. The couple that other couples secretly hate because we're still ridiculously in love after all this time. Adrian's smile was radiant. That sounds perfect. What do you see? Everything you just said. Plus, he reached into his jacket pocket and Leah's breath caught. Plus this. He pulled out a small velvet box. Time stopped. Adrian? Her voice was barely a whisper. I know it's crazy, he said quickly. I know we've only been officially together for 3 weeks, and a year ago you didn't even know I existed. But Leah, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. He opened the box to reveal a simple, stunning, solitaire diamond that caught the last rays of sunlight and threw them back in brilliant sparkles. I don't need you to answer now, he continued, his words tumbling over each other. I just needed you to know that when I think about the future, any future worth having, you're the only person I want to build it with. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Are you proposing to me? I'm telling you that I want to. Someday. When you're ready. When the timing is right. When you've had enough time to be absolutely sure that a man who practices conversations in the mirror is someone you want to spend your life with. Leah stared at the ring, then at Adrian's face, hopeful and nervous and so full of love it took her breath away. What if I'm sure now? She whispered. Leah, what if I don't need time? What if I've known since that first night in Chicago that you were going to change everything for me? She reached out and touched the ring, then his hand. What if I want to build a future with you starting right now? Are you saying... I'm saying yes. The word came out strong, certain, full of joy. Yes to the ring, yes to the future, yes to being disgustingly happy together, yes to everything. Adrian's face transformed with wonder and joy. With shaking hands, he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, like it had been waiting for her all along. I love you, he breathed, pulling her into his arms. I love you too, forever kind of love. The kiss that followed was everything. Celebration and promise, joy and certainty, the beginning of a story that had already become her favorite. When they finally broke apart, the sun had set completely, leaving them wrapped in twilight and possibility. So, Adrian said, his voice warm with laughter, how do you feel about a Christmas wedding? And in that moment, she realized that the best surprises weren't the ones you planned for. They were the ones that felt like coming home. 5 years later, some love stories don't end. They just keep getting better. The coffee shop on Michigan Avenue was exactly the same as it had been 5 years ago. Exposed brick walls, mismatched furniture, the smell of fresh roasted beans that could wake the dead. But Leah Sanders Cole barely recognized the woman she'd been the last time she'd sat at this particular corner table. She adjusted her wedding ring, a simple platinum band that complemented her engagement ring perfectly, and smiled at the memory of their Christmas wedding. It had snowed that day, big fat flakes that turned Chicago into a winter wonderland, and Adrian had whispered that even the weather was celebrating them. Aunt Leah, a small voice interrupted her reverie as 4-year-old Claire launched herself into her lap. Dark curls exactly like her mother's, and bright green eyes that sparkled with mischief. A perfect miniature version of Kira that still made Leah's heart skip. Hey, baby girl. Leah settled Claire on her lap, inhaling the sweet scent of childhood, bubblegum shampoo and playground adventures. Did you have fun with Uncle Adrian at the park? We fed the ducks, and he let me climb the really tall slide. And then we got ice cream even though Mummy said no sugar before lunch. Claire grinned, completely unrepentant. Did he now? Leah looked up to find Adrian approaching with Claire's mother, Kira, her best friend from college who'd moved to Chicago 2 years ago following a messy divorce and the promise of good friends and fresh starts. In my defense, Adrian said, settling into the chair beside her and leaning over to press a kiss to her temple, she used those eyes. You know the ones. They're genetically engineered to break down adult resistance. I have no idea what you're talking about, Leah said innocently, though she absolutely knew the eyes he meant. She'd perfected them herself years ago. Liar. Adrian's smile was warm, familiar, still capable of making her stomach flutter after 5 years of marriage. How was your meeting? Good. Really good. Leah shifted Claire to her other knee, reaching for the portfolio she'd set on the table. Morrison Industries wants to expand their community partnership program to 6 more cities. They want our firm to handle all of it. Our firm, Adrian repeated, and she could hear the pride in his voice. I love the sound of that. Sanders Cole Community Development had started as a dream, whispered in their apartment late at night 3 years ago. Now it was a thriving consultancy with 12 employees, offices in Chicago and Milwaukee, and a reputation for innovative community-focused development that had earned them national recognition. It means more travel, Leah said, watching his face carefully. They'd talked about this, about balancing their growing business with the life they'd built together. How much more? 2 weeks a month, maybe 3 during the setup phases. Adrian was quiet for a moment, considering. Claire had climbed down from Leah's lap and was now coloring at the small table they'd dragged over for her, humming tunelessly as she worked. What are you thinking? Leah asked. I'm thinking, Adrian said slowly, that 2 years ago the idea of you traveling that much would have terrified me. Not because I don't trust you or support your career, but because I couldn't imagine missing you that much and surviving it. And now? Now I'm thinking that watching you build something you're passionate about is one of my favorite things in the world. And that maybe it's time. Something in his tone made her look at him sharply. Time for what? Instead of answering, Adrian reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Kira, would you mind taking Claire to see the fish tank for a few minutes? Of course. Kira stood, scooping up Claire with practiced ease. Come on, baby. Let's go look at the pretty fish while the grown-ups talk about boring business stuff. It's not boring, Claire protested as they walked away. Uncle Adrian never talks about boring stuff. Once they were alone, Adrian unfolded the paper and handed it to Leah. She recognized the letterhead immediately, Chicago Hope Adoption Agency. Adrian? Her voice was barely a whisper. Read it. With trembling fingers, she scanned the letter. Words jumped out at her. Approved, eligible, waiting list, 6 to 12 months. You applied for us to adopt? I started the process 6 months ago, he said quietly. All the paperwork, the background checks, the home visits. I wanted everything to be ready so that when you were ready, we could just be ready. Tears blurred her vision. They'd talked about children, long conversations that stretched into the early hours of the morning, about timing and careers, and whether they were ready to share their perfectly ordered life with the beautiful chaos of parenthood. When you said it's time, I meant it's time for us to start the family we've been dreaming about. Time for you to take on projects that excite you without worrying about biological clocks or perfect timing. Time for us to love a child who needs a family as much as we need them. She looked at him, this man who'd learned to read her heart better than she could read it herself, and felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he'd done. Not just the adoption paperwork, but the way he'd thought through their whole life, their dreams, the delicate balance of career and family that so many couples struggled with. What if I'm not ready? She whispered. Then we wait until you are. But Leah, he reached for her hands, his thumbs tracing her knuckles in the gesture that had become his signature comfort. I've watched you with Claire, with your nephew, with every child we encounter. You light up in a way that's different from anything else. You're going to be an incredible mother. What if I'm traveling too much? What if I can't balance everything? Then we'll figure it out. Together, same way we've figured out everything else. His smile was gentle. Besides, I work from home half the time now. I can be the primary caregiver when you're traveling. We can make this work. Leah stared at the letter, at this tangible proof of a future she'd been afraid to want too badly. A baby. A baby. Or maybe not such a baby. The social worker said they have children of all ages who need families. Like Claire's age? Like Claire's age. The idea of a 4-year-old with questions and personality and the ability to climb tall slides made her smile through her tears. "I love you so much, it's ridiculous. Is that a yes?" "That's a yes. To the adoption, to the travel, to figuring out how to be parents while running a business and maintaining our sanity." She leaned across the table to kiss him, tasting coffee and promises and the future they were about to build. That's a yes to everything. When Kira and Claire returned, they found Leah and Adrian holding hands across the table, both crying and laughing at the same time. "Are you sad?" Claire asked, climbing back onto Leah's lap with the instinctive comfort-giving abilities of children. "No, sweetheart. We're happy. Really, really happy." "Good. I don't like it when grown-ups are sad." Claire settled against Leah's chest, small and warm and trusting. "Uncle Adrian, can we get ice cream again?" "Claire," Kira warned, "you already had ice cream. But now Aunt Leah needs ice cream too. She looks like she needs ice cream." Adrian's laughter was rich and warm. "You know what? I think you're absolutely right. Aunt Leah definitely needs ice cream." As they walked toward the ice cream counter, Adrian's hand warm in hers, Claire chattering about flavors and toppings, Kira rolling her eyes good-naturedly at their sugar-enabling tendencies, Leah felt a deep sense of contentment settle over her. 5 years ago, she'd sat in a similar coffee shop planning a safe, predictable life. She'd been so afraid of taking risks, of wanting too much, of letting herself dream beyond the boundaries of what felt secure. Now she was married to a man who read her heart like poetry, running a business that challenged her every day, about to become a mother to a child who didn't even know they needed her yet. She was traveling for work, taking risks, building something meaningful with the person she loved most. It wasn't the life she'd planned, it was infinitely better. That evening, as she and Adrian sat on their apartment balcony, the same apartment where he'd cooked her dinner and asked her to stay, now filled with photographs of their travels and awards from their business, and a guest room that would soon be converted to a nursery, Leah thought about the woman who'd run away from a hotel room 5 years ago. "Do you ever wonder," she said, curled against Adrian's side as they watched the sunset paint Chicago's skyline in shades of gold and rose, "what would have happened if I hadn't run that morning?" "All the time," he said, his fingers tangling in her hair. "But then I think about how perfect everything turned out anyway, and I figure maybe we needed those 3 months apart." "Why?" "Because when I found you again, we were both ready. Really ready. If we'd stayed together after that first night, would we have built this life? Or would we have been so caught up in the intensity of it all that we missed the deeper things?" She considered this, thinking about the woman she'd been then versus the woman she was now. "I think you're right. I needed to learn how to be brave on my own before I could be brave with you. And I needed to learn that some things are worth turning your whole life upside down for." They sat in comfortable silence as the city lights began to twinkle below them, holding hands and planning their future, and feeling grateful for the journey that had brought them here. "Adrian? When we have our child, when we're a family, will you still bring me coffee in the morning?" His laughter rumbled through his chest. "Leah Sanders Cole, I will bring you coffee every morning for the rest of our lives. Even when we're old and grey and our kids are rolling their eyes at how disgustingly in love we still are. Promise? Promise? Some things never change. And some things," she said, thinking of adoption papers and business plans and the beautiful uncertainty of the future they were building, "change everything." "The best things," he agreed, pressing a kiss to the top of her head, "always do." As the stars appeared over Chicago, Leah closed her eyes and made a wish. Not for anything new, but for the wisdom to recognize how blessed she already was, for the courage to keep taking chances, for many more years of morning coffee and shared dreams, and the kind of love that grew stronger with time. In the distance, a church bell tolled the hour, and somewhere in the city, a child who didn't know it yet was about to gain the family they'd been waiting for. And in that moment, Leah realized that the best love stories weren't about perfect beginnings. They were about choosing each other, again and again, and building something beautiful from all the chances you were brave enough to take. A message from the heart. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories are the ones that remind us that it's never too late to be brave. Leah's journey from a woman who ran from love to someone who built an empire with her soulmate shows us that the right person doesn't just love you, they inspire you to become the best version of yourself. Adrian didn't just wait for Leah. He created space for her to grow, to dream, and to discover her own strength. Together they proved that real love isn't about finding someone to complete you, it's about finding someone to build an extraordinary life with. Their story reminds us that some risks are worth taking, Some chances are worth seizing, and some people are worth turning your entire world upside down for. Whether it's leaving a hotel room at dawn or saying yes to a proposal in wine country, every choice led them exactly where they needed to be. Love like this exists. It's patient, it's transformative, and it grows stronger with every challenge overcome together. Your turn to share. What moment in Leah and Adrian's love story resonated most deeply with you, and why did it touch your heart? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories and reflections make this journey even more meaningful. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.